Hard work,
Hard work, that's what they say.
hard work,
Hard work, I earn my pay.
hard work.
Hard work, do it every day.
Hello, and welcome to everyone to Snipes Castle, the U.S. Navy Sailors Podcast. I'm your host, Senior Chief D. LaMonica. Sorry about the camera. We had a little technical issues. I couldn't get my internet camera to connect. So I'm using my webcam off my computer so we can get this interesting interview with one of our shipmates from the USS Sherman going. Again, welcome to the first podcast of 2024. We got some exciting interviews coming this year, starting today with ITCM, Amari Ponciano, join us today for a two-part interview. We got Brianna McSwain, we got a buddy of mine, GSMC Dennis Bernini of the USS Cape St. George going to be joining us. And we got a surface warfare officer, Crystal Roth, will be joining us. Got officers in there coming in there too. She was the former electrical officer of the Fort Sherman. All right, but we got many more coming to you this year in 2024. Behind me, you'll see a banner gifted to me Christmas by a shipmate, Chief Bernini. We served on the Cape St. George together. And I wish I could show you. I'll give you a picture of this coin. If my camera is up, he sent me this coin, retired senior chief coin, retired. It says enjoying life, traveling, no muster, no duty, no underway. Not my problem anymore. So that's a tight little coin he gave me. And he gave me another coin, the Snipes coin, which reads, when you see a ship pull out to meet a warship foe, remember faintly, if you can, the men who sail below. That's a Snipes castle, a Snipes coin. You got the red E and you got the Snipes and all the ravens on it. So thank you to Chief Bernini, Dennis out there. We're going to interview him later on. He's in the midst of retiring, man. But he retired. I mean, I think he was a fireman. When I was on there, I was a chief and he was a fireman. He retiring now, man. You talk about old, man. Oh, my gosh. You know, time flies. All right. But right now, what we want to do is introduce a Master Chief. All right. Our first Master Chief on Snipes Castle. We're going to bring him in, and we're going to bring him in really strong. All right. All right. Here we go. Here we go. All right. This shipmate of ours from the USS Sherman has attained a rank few men who complete and retire from the U.S. Navy with 20 plus years never reach. Me, for example. He has completed more tours of duty at different places than I've seen or thought possible. I mean, he been to a lot of places. On full show, he was one of the most respected first-class petty officers on board, where he was rightfully selected the chief petty officer. So from chief, senior chief, to master chief, bachelor degree, leader, dad, and the occasional words of wisdom on LinkedIn and Instagram. Give it up for the man with the most designations and chat on his chest than General Douglas MacArthur himself. Snipes Castle welcomes Master Chief, Information Systems Technician, IW. We're going to ask him what that one is. SWAW, we already know what that one is. Amari Ponciano. Give it up for Amari, everybody.
Thank you for having me, brother. I appreciate you.
All right. Let me get the double one going. There we go. All right. How you doing?
I'm doing well, man. I'm doing well. Happy to be here.
Happy to be here. Great. Welcome to Snipes Castle. I saw on Facebook you was having breakfast with one of our brothers there.
Yeah. Yeah. And we have a very tight like brotherhood, and it goes beyond the mess when it comes to the Fort Sherman. The things that we went through on the ship, and in regards to the tough schedules. We did all the deployments, we did joint warriors, the yards. When you have all that, I mean, I calculated a few years ago, we were underway or in the yards for about 27, 28 months out of the 36 months
Yeah.
that I was on board. So,
Mhm.
like that makes you get closer with people, because you leaning on that person to be like, hey man, it's gonna be okay tomorrow, right? Like, like as the
Yeah.
days get longer and tougher, and those people become your brothers and sisters. So you, Corey, Nick, Mac, those are people that you guys I hold very dear because you also put me through the season as well. So like I learned to be a chief because of you guys. So I'm very grateful for each one of you.
Yeah, for our Snipes Castle listeners out there, remember those words. And remember another thing, this world is very crazy right now. It's very crazy. A lot of things are happening. But for those out there who are not familiar with military service and you out there and you say, hey, I support the troops. Thank you for your service. All right. What I want you to do is not just support the troops, but I want you to be like the troops. Because in our organization and in the other service branches, we bleed navy blue. All right. We bleed navy blue. We don't see color. All right. We all brothers and sisters. We go through some things you couldn't possibly imagine. So shout out to those words from Master Chief Ponciano there. All right. So let's get this going. All right. So where are you originally from?
As you could probably tell, or you're gonna see throughout the interview, simply because I get excited about certain things. I have this accent because I was born in Dominican Republic. I was born in Dominican Republic, and I migrated to the United States at the age of 14 to New Jersey. I didn't speak any English when I got here. But I was lucky that I came to a community in New Jersey where there was a lot of Latinos also as well. So I didn't feel completely, not at home. Although I came in October of 1994, and that was the biggest, that winter was like the biggest blizzard we had in New Jersey for in like 60, 70 years. So I was quickly acquainted to the winter and snow, things that you do not see in my beautiful island, where it's usually about 80 degrees, breezy throughout the year. So yeah, I came to New Jersey, and then I went through high school, and I joined the Navy right out of high school.
Now, what made you join the Navy? What image? What made you join the Navy?
So a few things, right? So first, I was able to, they had this program in my senior year where you able to go to a couple of colleges and like stay for the day. They put you in a dorm where someone else is going to school. So I went to three colleges: Boston College, Pitt, and another one in New Jersey.
Wow.
And I noticed that each one of them, I don't know if it was luck of the drawing or whatever, but each time they put me with someone, all that kid was doing was partying, right? Like, and I just thought to myself, like, if I'm away from my parents or my mom at the time, like, I don't know if I'll graduate, right? So that was one thing that was in my head. The other one was my mom did not have that kind of money, right, for me to go to school. So I would have needed a full scholarship or get into all these loans and stuff, and that didn't. The full scholarship was far fetched, or like it didn't seem like I was gonna get there. And then I really did not want to get in debt. And lastly, my mother was married at the time, and he was in the army for 4 years. So he was like, hey, why
Oh,
don't you?
okay.
So he was like, why don't you look at the military? So I actually took my ASVAB for the army, but because the recruiter was only talking about infantry, I was not feeling that. I was like, I want to work, I want to work with computers, man. Like I got a decent score, right? Like I want to do computers. And I don't know, like how if you've been to a lot of recruiting offices, but at least the one in Union City, New Jersey, is like a long hallway, and then in each door there's the different recruiting. So you
Right,
got
right,
Army,
right.
right next to it is Navy. So I literally stepped out and walked into the Navy guy, and I was like, "Hey, man, if you could give me something that has to do with computers, uh, I'm yours. I took the ASVAB already. I'm good to go." And then the guy was Latino like me, the one in the Navy.
Mhm.
RM2 Colon, that was his last name, Puerto
It,
Rican.
it, one
And
more time.
yeah,
When did you join the Navy?
I joined the Navy in 1999. So
Do you know,
go ahead.
I was a first class in Jamaica, Queens during that time.
Oh my
In
goodness.
the recruiting office.
Oh my goodness. But yeah,
That's crazy, you know?
I went to the delay entry program in '98 because I still haven't graduated from high school,
Mm-hmm.
and then I actually like got shipped out in August. But yeah, man, like I came into his office, and another thing that got me
And
was
I
he
know
had,
Cologne.
oh my goodness, man, like he had all these pictures, right? And then all of them were from different countries, and I'm not gonna lie to you, and he was like hugging a female in it seemed like in every picture. So I was like, I wanted, if you could get me to computers and I could do that, then I'm yours. And that's why I joined the Navy, man.
Okay, all right. Now, if you can remember, do you remember when you got down to MEPS? You remember what jobs they offered you?
So yeah, so when I got there, right, they were trying to like I give Cologne my recruiter credit because he did say, he was like, look, the only things that you cannot do, you don't have a high enough score to be a nuke, and then he's like, you were not born in the United States, so there's a couple of jobs that you cannot do because you could get a clearance, but there's certain jobs, like for example, IS, which is intelligence specialist, like you have to be
Yeah.
born in the US
Hmm.
to
Yeah.
be able to get that job. So he kind of gave me a little bit of like information. So I get there, MEPS, man, they offer me everything in admin. Um, they offer me a bunch of supply, a few air, and no issues with any of that. But like none of that stuff is what I wanted, which is work with computers.
Yeah.
And I got to a point that I was like, if it's not that, then I'm gonna leave. And the guy was like, well, your score is not high enough. And I was like, well, that's not what my recruiter said. And he's like, well, your English, which mind you, at the time when I took the ASVAT, I'd only been in the US about 3.5 years. So he was
Yeah.
like, your English is not as high as it needs to be. But then he said, your math is so high that I'm going to see if I could get you a waiver. And I got a waiver to use, like, I guess some of the points that I got from the math to,
Right. Right. Hmm.
kind
Yeah.
of equal to the English.
Hmm.
And yeah, but they offer me like all these different things. And the funny thing is that my recruiter, he never told me like what he did, which he was an RM, which is what I ended up being. So when I
Yeah.
came out and I was like, hey man, I got RM so I could be doing computers. And he's like, that's what's up. That's what I am. And I was like, how come you didn't tell me to ask him for that? And he was like, I didn't want to sway you one way or another, right? Like I didn't want to tell you like go ask for this job and then you don't get it and then you be mad at me. So that's why he was like, I just told
Yeah.
you like
Yeah.
the things that you could qualify for, but I wasn't gonna sway you one way or another. And it worked out, man.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Radio, man. A
Radio
lot
man,
of
yep.
a lot of y'all guys out there don't know. It wasn't ITs. It was radio men before, and I believe y'all combined with somebody else too.
The we combined with the DPs, the data processors.
DPs. That's DPs. I remember DPs on my first ship. You know,
Yep.
DPs. That's the old rate right there. All right. So you join other MEPS. Like I told you, I was in first class in Jamaica Queens at the
That's
time.
crazy.
That's crazy. All right. So from there you go to Great Lakes, correct?
That's correct, yes.
Great Lakes for boot camp, graduate boot camp, get through A school. From A school, they send you to your first ship, the USS Cole. Now, when you got there, I mean, you come from Dominican Republic, in the United States. Now you're in the military. It's almost like a culture shock. Almost like a culture shock.
Yeah.
You get
Like
to your
one,
first ship.
like it seems like one on top of the other. You got the
Yeah,
first culture shock coming to the U.S. and completely different language, different things, and then I come into the Navy, and like my A school was also in Great Lakes, so I was there for almost a whole year, and it was, I thought New Jersey was cold, but Great Lakes is on another
oh
level,
yeah, man,
you
yeah.
know. So I get to the USS Cole. Funny story, real quick. Back then, in your orders, it didn't say what was your sex. It just simply had your name, and I think back then they even had your full social. Like it was a lot different
Yeah,
than what it
oh
is
yeah.
now.
Hmm. Yeah.
But it didn't have your sex. So like, although I talked to my sponsor a couple of times over the phone, they thought I was a female when I showed up. So when I showed up on board the ship, my rack was in the female berthing. Um, and I showed up like later on in that in the day, so everybody was gone. So thankfully, like the duty IT like helped me out, and they grabbed the first rack that they saw empty, and I was able to like lay my head there for the night until everybody came back the next day. But yeah, they thought I was a female that was coming on board.
So how was your time on the Cole?
So I can tell you this, man. Like I I I really enjoyed it, right? Like I remember that I had to cut my leave like a little bit short from A school to the ship because my sponsor, she said, "Hey, we're about to go on Com2X, which is like the main exercise right before deployment.
Hmm.
And we're gonna be on the way for like 6 weeks, and I'd rather you be on the ship and then just go with us instead of trying to meet us somewhere." And then she also said, I want you to get that rhythm, battle rhythm, so then by the time we go on deployment, you're not like completely fresh.
That's a
Um,
good sponsor.
yeah, and then she also mentioned the fact like and we're gonna hit Miami because I was the port that we were gonna hit, and she was like that way you get to like understand like what is the rules and how port visits are gonna be once we go on deployment. So I mean when she put it down that way, I was like for sure. Like it was only like 5 days that I cut off from my leave, so it wasn't like a big
Yeah.
deal.
Hmm.
But I got to the Cole, man, and right away when I got to radio, I felt like I was part of a family. Like
Yeah.
My
Hmm.
LPO was amazing. IT1 Bloodcell, who retired as a lieutenant commander, um, he was to this day. I a lot of the things that I do as a leader come from his leadership, right? It just the way he was always challenging me, but not in the sense of like like I wasn't proficient enough. It just simply like whenever I'll show up with a PQS, he'll have two more for me to do. Right? It was always a
Yeah.
constant challenge. If I
Yeah.
ask a question about something, he'll be like, "Well, here's the pub. Go take a look at it, then come back and let's talk about it because I want to make sure that you understand it the right way." Um,
Hmm.
and then everybody else, like we were just a family. Everybody was getting calls so that way we could go in three watch sections, so like so everybody pushed each other. Everybody wants always trying to and then even like and this from being in small ships, like we even sat in like on the same table to eat as a
Yeah.
group, the ITs, and then
Yeah.
um and then we went on deployment in August 2nd of 2000. And the first 2 months before the bombing, to this day, is probably like the best deployment I had, between hitting all the ports that we hit in that short amount of time, and then the camaraderie that we have. And then back then there wasn't as many rules as we have now. I mean, I was a
Yeah.
E1. I was an E1, and my Liberty expired like at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh
You
yeah.
know, so and I remember my last deployment in 17. I was a senior chief in the SCL, the senior enlisted advisor or leader. And my Liberty expires like at 1 o'clock, and I was, what I mean, like I
Yeah, back in the day, gang firemen used to stay out dang near all night. Now, if
yeah,
you was
man,
asleep, you could have been at dang 12. That's
yeah,
crazy.
just crazy, brother, just crazy. But yeah, it was besides the coal, and even with the coal, right? Like and we'll talk about that in another, like you said, in
Yeah,
another episode, like all the details. But even with as gruesome and the things that I saw, whatever, I also saw a lot of brotherhood. You got my back. I got your back. I'm here for you. Um, I also saw the why we train so hard, why we do all the things that we do,
man.
because when something like this happen, you have to have muscle memory. We can't
Oh,
just
yeah.
go. You can't just go to a pub. I can't go and stop you and be like, "Hey, senior, how do I work this pump?" No, I need to be able to do it because you're going to be focused on other things and CCS and things like that. So,
Oh,
um,
definitely.
so it it really it really the same way a lot of people got out after the coal, like they just it was too much for them to be in the Navy, which I
Yeah,
completely understand. For me, it actually catapulted me to try to be the best sailor that I could be, because I understood then, because we were at peace. Like, you got to remember that happened in 2000. 9/11 didn't happen until 2009, so we were not
yeah,
at war, right?
right.
So it just showed that, like, because of what we represent as a United States Navy, whether, all the issues that we might have as a country and what other all the other, BS that some country talk about us. The bottom line is whenever there's a conflict, whenever there's something, they expect us to be there.
Oh
We
yeah.
are we are the defending of freedom on the entire world, right? So at that time we were just making sure that the waters are safe for, for trade. That's usually what we do, making sure that, other countries and in our own interest we're able to do trade or whatever. And then that happened in Yemen, and they just show that, like, even at peace, because of what we represent, there is people that just don't like us. But I learned a lot from that.
Yeah. So after the bombing, we're gonna for everybody out there, we're gonna talk about this in a separate interview because it's gonna take some time. So we only got like 2 hours, so we could go on this career, but we're gonna get there. We're gonna get there at the next interview. But so you stayed on the Cole after it came out the yards and it was all repaired, or was you gone before it came out the yards?
So I had we all had a choice. Those that wanted to stay on in the Navy to kind of pick orders. And I remember I talked to the detail at the time. And crazy enough, I wanted to go to San Diego, right? Like I wanted to,
Mhm.
I wanted to go somewhere sunny. But I understood, that I'm still OC duty, so I was all okay. I was like, just send me to any ship, I don't care. And the detailer was like, no, we don't have anything. And I'm like, I'm not even married. All I have is a sea bag. I don't even have furniture to move. Like I should be the easiest, I should
Yeah.
be the easiest person to move. And
Yeah.
they were not trying to hear it. So I was like, well, can I stay? And then the Cole became like a pre-com unit. Like they send a lot of us to a bunch of schools and things like that.
Mhm.
And then after like about a year, we had to go on board the Cole in Mississippi where it was getting fixed in Pascagoula. Um, but that's when my PTSD then started showing, right? Like once I got on
Mhm.
board the ship, I started, having a lot of nightmares and cold sweats and was very irritable and angry for, I didn't even know why. So finally, the Navy did something really good for all of us, which was we every like 3 months we had to take a questionnaire, a bunch of questions, and then
Mhm.
like after it will get examined, and then there will be like, okay, yeah, your scores are a lot higher, like what's going on, and then you get to see a psychiatrist. And that's when I went limdu. um and I went limit duty, and I was sent to NICTAM's land, in Norfolk, like the which is like our main shore station for ITs.
Okay, okay, that's what I remember. All right, Nick Tams, like that's what that is. You mean uh shore duty for the IETs. That's what I was getting ready to this Nick Tams land. That's what it was. All right. So you go to Nick Tams land for a year.
Yes.
Basically you go in the shore duty basically to almost decompress from like a wartime environment, basically.
So yeah, and mostly to be honest, it's to be able to make all those appointments that I had to make, because I had to like,
Yeah.
and I was therapist, psychology, I was on medication for depression, for like all these
Mhm.
different things, right? So it allowed me also, thankfully, because I was in NICTAMS, to still be in my rate, right? Like that's something that
Mhm.
a lot of times a lot of other rates don't get um, that advantage of, like, they get
Right.
sent commands where they're not performing their duties, right? So
Right.
like, so
Mhm.
that, to be honest, that can make it worse, because then you feel like, like you're not helping, like you're not part of the institution anymore, because they just have you in a place picking up trash for the base. You know what I mean? Or
Yeah.
like, for example, when I was in TPU, which is at the transfer unit, they had me escorting people to jail, right? Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like that kind of, I didn't join the Navy to do that, right? So when I was in NICTAMS, I was able to do that. I made second class while I was there, and thankfully I got clear for limb duty. So then I went to finish my sea duty, and I went to a strike group 8, um, out of Norfolk as well.
Yeah, so you declare you for duty, you left Nick Tam's land, and then you go to strike group 8. What did you do there? What was that like? It was sea duty, but was that like a shore duty, sea duty type of
It,
thing?
it's a staff, right? So
Right.
I worked in the time that I was there. I was there for almost 3 years. So We had a 1-star and then a 2-star.
Hmm.
So it's a staff, and the way it works is we are in a building, and then when it's time to do the workups, to get to the deployment, then we embark the carrier. And in this
Okay.
case, the first deployment that I did with the strike group was with the George Washington. Uh, so we would embark the ship, and then we will be part of the ship. And then my duties were, I was the flag CWO. CWO is the communication watch officer. So my responsibilities when I was on watch was to ensure that all the communications on the strike group is being, performed, that we're able to talk. And at that time, you had the carrier, you had a cruiser, and then 3 destroyers will be part of the strike group, and a
And
sub
you
as
do that
well.
as the second class. That's second class, right?
Yes, I was the second class. Yeah, and but you know what, man? And then I had a master chief that he like was retiring, and he was like, "Hey, you come from working in tech control in Nick Tam's land, so I'm gonna make you the frequency manager for the whole strike group." And that's an E9 job that I was doing. And I didn't have the school that he had, which is a frequency manager school, but he taught me, everything that I needed to know. And I'm gonna
Yeah.
tell you, I used to make some big mistakes. Like I will send this message to the whole strike group, and there will be things that will not be right. I remember one time we had a conference right before deployment, and there's this chief that raises his hand, and he's like pretty upset, like pissed off. He's like, "Who is this IT2 that keeps messing up this message?" Uh, and I'm over
Oh,
here, like, yeah, that's me. But thankfully, my chain of command had my back, so like my chief and stood up, and then my lieutenant commander. It was one of those things that it was a lot of responsibility, but like it also helped me to develop early, right? So
yeah, yeah.
I had leadership skills. I was standing in front of like commanders and captains, and the 1-star, I had to give him a brief every day while we were in deployment in regards to like the
Mhm.
comms for the whole battle group. So like that made me like be put in positions that usually you don't see for E5.
Exactly.
You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
exactly right there. I mean that you was an IT2, but you almost had to rise to the level of a dang chief petty officer, And I
Yes.
mean basically you ain't had no choice because he's gonna give you that position, right? He was retired. So yeah, man, that's freaking great right there.
Yeah.
All right. So the strike group, you performed at the strike group 2003, 2006. You made IT1 during that time?
No, here a quick note, just to hopefully the sailors that are listening, um, don't take actually studying for granted, right? Because I was one of those that I knew my stuff, right? Like I knew it as
Yeah.
far as technically, like, but there's something to be said. Like you need to be able to describe it and read it from like what the pub description is. So, for example, I was able to set up a EHF circuit, which is a extremely high frequency circuit, but to describe it the way the pub, which is where the questions come from, I couldn't do that because I wouldn't read the pubs. I would just
Yeah,
learn
yeah,
it. I would just learn it hands on, and then I was good. But I didn't have the actual literature behind it. So when it came
hmm
to the test, I, it took me what I made. I left us at E5. It took me. I took the exam 9 times. No, 8 times before I make first.
Wow,
Yeah.
wow, that's amazing. And it was the same as me because I would get the test, and I'd be like, man, this HT stuff, GS's deal with this stuff, piping and tubing and stuff like that. And it took me a while. And I was like, when I finally read the book, that's when I finally made it.
Yeah. It's amazing, huh? Like,
Yeah.
but it even hurt me because I made, while I was in strike group, I made junior sailor of the year. So they
Mhm.
put me up for cap at the time. Now it's called MAP, but back then it was called cap. Um, and they put me for it. And I remember when I was sitting on the board, the chair of the board was a YNCS senior chief, and she was looking at my profile sheet, and she was like, "Why should I make you a first class when you barely passed your test? When you didn't even put the effort?"
Mhm.
And I didn't have an answer for her. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
I
yeah.
just I just sat there, and then like they capped this OS2 to OS1 because he scored an 80, which is the highest you could score, and he still did
Yeah.
not make it because the quotas were so close,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
like even in that way, it hurt me. And then I remember the next Master Chief that I got when I was in strike group. She was the last one that spoke to me about that, and she Master Chief Kunipo, that was her name, and she was so like real about it. She looked at me and she said, "Look here, dumbass." This is exactly what she said. If you don't care about the responsibilities, if you don't care about the prestige of being a first class, then give a shit about the fact that you're losing money. Every 6 months that you don't make it, you're losing money.
Yeah.
And I just
Somebody
like
told me
like
that.
bro, like that is so like that's so basic. Yet
Yeah,
I
man.
needed to hear someone that I
Dollar signs.
care about me, right? That it was able to like look at me, and she was like very serious. Like it was more like a mom talking to a son.
Yeah.
It's like a
Yeah.
master chief to a sailor. And then I that's when I transferred to England. I mean to Bahrain. I'm sorry.
Mhm.
And I took it a couple of times, and then I finally made it after that.
I mean, yeah. So from strike group 8, you went to Bahrain. Did you want to go overseas somewhere?
Yeah, so a couple of things, young sailor at the time, because like when I left a strike group, I was like 25. I was in a really bad relationship, and I wanted to leave like Virginia because I just, I kept
Want to get away.
yeah, I kept going back. We will fight. It will be like
Mhm.
ugly fights, bro. Like it will get ugly. Like cops will be cold. It was toxic, and but we will come back to each other. So like I told myself I'm gonna continue doing this until one of us goes to jail and ruins their life, right? So I was like
Uh-huh.
I picked orders, and I was like I need to leave. And I picked orders to Bahrain, and I went to the NCTS, which is the Naval Communication Telecommunication Naval Center Telecommunication Station, Bahrain. Um, and I was there with the doing satellite communications. I went to school in Augusta, Georgia, for about 6 weeks, and then I went
Mhm.
to Bahrain for about a year and 2 months.
Okay. All right. Bahrain. How'd you like Bahrain? How'd you like it?
I loved it, man. I'm not gonna lie to you, especially as a young single man. As an E5, I was living in this luxurious apartment.
Yeah.
Um,
Everybody
you
was
know,
telling me that.
yeah, man. I could tell you, like, if you negotiate well, you could get. I had a maid. I had a,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I had a card. I mean, it was a beater, but like, I didn't have to pay for it. Like, it was included.
Mhm.
Someone.
Included.
Yeah,
That's
man. Like that
crazy.
was all part because like we pay so much for the rent over there,
Mhm.
and like I said, if you negotiate, they just want to get the money. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
although they have a lot of money themselves, the landlord just wants to get someone into the apartment, right? So like
Right.
I
Mhm.
remember I went in, I didn't like the furniture, so I was like, I want all this taken out. I want a TV in every room, including the bathroom. I want bro, I was asking for the world, and he was like, okay, 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 give me 3 weeks, and in 3 weeks the apartment was good to go. And yeah, I was living it up
Living
in
like a
Bahrain,
big businessman. Yeah.
bro. It was it
Millionaire,
it was crazy. It got to a point that when I got orders and I knew I had about 3 months left, I told the landlord, I was like, tell the cleaning lady and the cooking lady not to come anymore. And he's like, they did something wrong. I was like, no, I need to start getting used to doing shit because I'm not gonna be having all that stuff when I go back to the US.
right? Oh, man, you living it up, boy. Maid taking care of you. It's like
I
that's
had I
crazy.
had it all, brother. I had it all, man.
All right. So from Bahrain, that's 2007, 2008. You go to a JAC Molesworth. What is that?
So that's it's a joint environment in England, and it's mostly an intel command, right?
Mhm.
So there's a lot of crypto, your CTs, you have your ISs in there too. And then you have a little bit of like, you had to call like 3 or 4 YNs because we need admin. You have your
Mhm.
supply folks, but it was mostly an intel command. And I went over there to work on the networks and also work on the crypto equipment. Um, and it was for me. It was at that time. We had this program in the Navy that was called AIAP. I can't remember what the words stand for, but pretty much what it was you will get an incentive to go to these places. So on top of my BA, my regular base pay, and then the cola that you get, and then the OHA, which is like the housing instead of BAH, and overseas is OHA. You also get this pay, and it was an extra $800 a month just to go to England. So I was like, bet I'll do that. And the funny part
Extra
was,
800.
yeah, an
That's
extra
a lot.
800. I mean, it was tax. It was tax, so it came out to
Yeah,
be like 600, but it was
that's
still extra
that's still
money.
good, man. That's
Yeah,
still good.
I mean,
Yeah.
we're talking about 2007, 2009. That
Yeah.
was still good money. I mean, 2009 to 2010, so it's
Yeah.
still good money. Um, but like I remember a couple of chiefs when in Bahrain telling me that was not a good place career wise.
Mhm.
But I was determined to like make the most out of it. So I understood that my job and responsibility were not going to be that high. So then what I started doing was I got more involved in collaterals and first class association,
Yeah.
because that's where I picked up first class. And then I started doing other things. I was teaching back then. We used to have the BMRs for the exam. So I started,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
So I started teaching that. Like I would teach it Tuesdays and Thursday on my
Oh,
off time.
do they even got BMRs now? Do they even?
They do. It's called something different now. It's called professional military knowledge, or
Okay.
PMKEE.
That's right. That's right.
And but
Hmm.
now the way they do it is it's not part of the actual exam. You take it on your own time, and then once you
Hmm.
complete it for that pay grade, then that you're good to go. And then your
Good to
exam
go.
is just about your technical expertise and your
Okay.
job
All right.
itself. Yeah.
All right. So went from Bahrain to England. What part of England? What is it? What
So
part?
it's the best way that I could tell you is about an hour and a half to an hour, about an hour and a half north of London.
North of London.
And
All
the,
right.
the the biggest city around that area is Cambridge, like the famous
Cambridge.
Cambridge University and things like that.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So from JAC Mover, you said you only was there for a year. For a
I
whole
was there
year.
for 2 years. 2 years.
2 years. Okay.
Yeah. I got there. I got that early, like late '08, and then I did
Hmm.
9, and then I left in 10. So it was like,
Okay.
yeah.
You left there first class, and then did you choose the USS Fort Sherman, or was you
Yeah,
chosen?
so more stories here. So I because I was working so hard, right, and doing all these things, and I was one of the few first classes that didn't have any family over there. I mean, I had my daughter already. My daughter was one, but she was in Virginia. So I dedicated a lot of extra time for work. Like I said, teaching the BMRs and any comrails. I was part of that. I was part of the first class association. I was the CFL. I was urinalysis. So like I was doing all these things. So my very first eval as a rank first class, right? Not the frog one, the first one that you get, which I was number one, but it was like only three of us. But my very first eval as a first class, I was the number one EP.
God damn.
Um, yeah. So the cheese mess put me to the side, and it was like they were like, "You need to go." And I was like, "What do you mean? I still gotta?" Because I could have OTAP for an extra year, right? Because
Yeah.
I could have done 3 years over there, and they were like, "You already the number one. Like you're not going to go any higher." Like
Yeah.
so,
Yeah. Exactly.
so,
Yeah.
and they were like, "If you want to make chief, you need to go to a surface. Go
Mhm.
to a ship, BLPOSC." Because I was LPO over there, but it's not the same as LPOSC.
God
And
damn. Good chief, man. Good mentors.
yeah, man, mentorship, bro, is underrated.
It's key,
Good
man. It's
mentorship is
freaking
underrated.
key.
It's
I would call
very
you a
key.
master chief right now if I had some, I get
It's
some mentors.
very
I'm
key.
telling you, man. The mentors are the key right there, man.
Yeah, I couldn't be here if it wasn't because of the mentorship. The people that have had my back. You still have to listen. So I give myself a
Mhm.
little bit of credit because you still have to take it and
Yeah.
do something about it. But I had those people that were willing. So then after I talked to like about 6 or 7 of the chiefs, I went to the ITC and I was like, "So what you think?" where should I go then? And he's like, all right, let's see what orders are there. And I remember I wanted a NEC, a specific NEC, and then I wanted to go back to a destroyer because I was going to counseling at the time, and one of the things that the council said was I need to face my fear, and my fear was I haven't gone on board uh, the Cole or any destroyer since the bombing,
Wow.
right?
Oh, okay.
And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna face it head on. So I put my mind into a destroyer with this NEC, and at the time there was three that had it: the USS James D. Williams DDG 95, USS Laboon DDG 58, and USS Forrest Sherman DDG 98. And the reason why I picked the Forrest Sherman out of the three as my number one was because I saw that they had only two first classes. All the other ones had three or four. And I was
Hmm.
like, because I'm a fresh first class, I want to go to one that has less. So hopefully by year two, year three, I become the LPO, right?
Right. Hmm.
And it worked out. So I got the school, I got the that I wanted en route, and I got the Forrest Sherman back in Virginia, so I also could be close to my daughter since my daughter's in Virginia as well.
All right. So how was duty on the Forest Sherman?
Man, so get there. Like I didn't. Funny enough, I did look to see how many first classes they have, but then I didn't look who was the chief. So I get there, and you remember that second class that I told you was my sponsor way back in the on the USS Cole.
Yeah.
That was the chief on board the Fort Sherman. So another Cole survivor, ITC Gomez.
Good.
Um, she was there, and she was very eager because she worked with me. Like she knew the type of individual that I was. Of course, we haven't seen each other in years, so she didn't know how I ended up developing going from a seaman to third, second, and now first class. I
Yeah,
get
you talk
there.
about a small world.
Yeah, I get there, and the Radio Shack. I met them already on deployment. So
Hmm.
I went to school, and then I flew to Bahrain, and the ship pulled in May, and I came on board. And again, the same kind of vibes as most DDGs. It's a family. They're already been in deployment for like 2 months, so everybody had their groups. Everybody was like very, knew each other or whatever. And the Radio Shack was pretty good. Um, but I will say that like the chief, she was awesome, but like the first classes were kind of lacking because the main LPO would picked up LDO, so
Hmm.
he left, so they had to put a first class that was not really. It was her first sea duty ever because she used to be a CTO.
Hmm.
They merged into ITs, and it was challenging because like even though I was a junior first class, I had more sea experience than she did, although she was more of a senior person. And I would
Yeah.
just simply bring up like things that I would think would be more efficient. And you know how a lot of us we become very territorial. I'm the LPO, so I'm gonna do what I think is right. Um, so we bump heads a little bit, and like about a month and a half of me being on board, she volunteered to take back another female that was having suicide ideations. So she took her back to the U.S. as the escort. And while she was gone, they make me the LPO, right?
Hmm.
And then my chief, she made senior chief, and right away she got orders to go somewhere else.
Hmm.
And so I remember sitting down with the combat system departmental CPO. He was an FC master chief, my senior chief, and uh, and he just looked at me and he was like, "You gonna be the LPO now?" And I was like, "Yeah, I want to be the LPO." And he's like, "No, you're not." And I was like, "Okay." And then he's like, "You're gonna be the acting LCPO."
Oh.
Because we're not gonna have a chief, so you're gonna be it. And when the first class come back, she'll have LPO, or you can name anybody as your LPO, and you're gonna be the acting LCPO. Um, and that's how it was, man. When I first when the first and like that's Corey was there, and he was a
Hmm.
senior chief at the time, or he just put on senior chief that year when I got there.
Yeah.
Um, So I had a lot of backing from the mess because like Master Chief Linka, who was the Master Chief, he liked me from like the jump. I don't, even my chief was like, I don't know, he usually don't like nobody, and you just showed up, and he gave me like random access, like administrator, which is only like 5 people that had it. I had it as a first
Yeah,
class. Like he just like, when someone is trying to set you up for like the next
yeah,
level,
yeah,
he
yeah.
did that
It
from the
was.
jump.
Yeah, man. But yeah. See how I want everybody to understand how important mentors are, how important it is to help a junior sailor get to that next level. Your mentorship is, one of the most important things in the world. To jog a sailor's memory that may be going astray, but you're actually seeing, okay, we're going through basically his process of getting to where he is today. And this is awesome. All right. So USS Ford Sherman, and I was like, damn, man, we underway for forever on this
Forever, brother.
bad boy.
Ever. Like I
Forever.
remember I remember we got back from that deployment, and straight up we did a joint warrior like a couple of months later. Mind you, for those that don't know, like we do all these little underways, a week here, 2 weeks there. But joint warrior was a 3 month quote unquote underway. It was like a mini
Yeah,
deployment.
yeah.
And we did all these exercises with the British, and we went up there like we
Oh,
were gone.
oh my God.
We were gone for over 90 days. Like
Hmm.
only after like 2 or 3 months from coming from a deployment, we got back. We went to the yards, and that's when the results came out for chief.
Yeah,
And
selected
that
the chief,
and that's like selected chief. Yeah.
selected the chief. And once you got selected for chief, then I remember there was two
Yes.
ITCs there.
Yep.
So you left, right?
No, so this is what happened. So right before I got selected, we went through the yard during the time that we were in the yard period. We finally got an ITC because I was the acting chief for 8 months. So we
Right.
finally got an ITC, but it's the moment he showed up, like a month later, the results came out that he got picked up for Warren. But
Okay.
he was not gonna put it on until like a year later, right?
Yeah.
So then the results came out, and I'm just gonna keep it real with you. The CEO did not like the other ITC. So when the results came, and I was going through the season, and I remember I was getting, that closeout eval they give you before, you actually like put on chief. Um,
Yeah.
I had to sit down with the CEO, and you remember D, our CMC, and she was there,
Yeah.
and she was like, "So we're gonna send ITC Mencika, that was his last name. We're gonna send him to the Ramage. You're gonna stay here."
Hey,
And
the
now,
seal got, he could keep who he like. He keep who he like on his team. It's like a
exactly,
football team.
exactly. And he was like, I just trust you more. That's all he said. I just
Yeah.
trust you more. And he, and then after we left his office, then I went to Dee's office in the mess, close to the mess, and her office there. And she's like, "What you need to understand though, it's going to be very challenging from you, because you used to be a first class for almost a year and a half here, and now you're going to be the chief."
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
she's like, "There's going to be people that's still going to call you IT1 from time to time,
Yeah.
because that's what they remember." And she's like, "It's up to you to what level they'll respect you once you wearing khakis. Are you still going to be the tight first class, or are you going to become a chief?" And she was like, "I leave it up to you, but I know that our mess will, get you on check if you're not on track, but it's ultimately asked up to you to make that difference." And she's like, "And you can make that difference without being mean, without, trying to degrade someone else. It just simply is, an understanding that like," and she even put it like this: "If your friends that used to be your friends while you were a first class cannot understand that, and now you are a chief, then they're not truly your friends."
Yeah. Yeah.
And and
It's
to be
simple as
honest,
that, really.
yeah,
Yeah.
and to be
Mhm.
honest, man, there was a couple of the first classes that didn't quite understand it, but like the vast majority, especially my boy, I don't know if you remember, George Gaitan,
Yeah.
um, LS1, he, you know, we even stay in the same duty section, and like I just became the section leader, and he became my assistant. Like, and
Mhm.
we still had that you know, that camaraderie and that thing. But he understood that now I'm a chief because we used to hang out together all the time as first classes.
Yeah.
But he
Yeah.
understood now, like now I'm a chief, he's the first class, so there was that, you know, that respect there. But you know, and it worked out, right? Like it's a lot of effort, you know. We went through a lot on the ship. Even after I put on chief, you know, going through InServe, another
Mhm.
deployment, and all the crazy underways, man. But it you know, like with your guidance, with the guidance of Mac, Nick, you know, Corey, like you guys, like the amount of mentorship and leeway that you guys left me, you know, you never treated me like a first year, right? Like, you know, whenever I had something to say in the mess, I was treated like any other chief there. Like there was, you know, the level of respect that I was giving, and the level to create things, to simply be like,
Yeah.
you know, I want to do this new. I remember I took over the ESWAS program because it was really
Yeah.
bad. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was
I
really
remember.
bad.
Mhm.
It was really
Yeah.
bad. And it was mostly because we were in the yard. So it wasn't because of the other
Yeah.
person that was doing it. It was simply when you're in the yards, you know, people are not
Everything
getting
goes to the wayside.
exactly. Now people not getting ESWAS calls. So we were
Yeah.
looking really bad. And I remember, you know, because D asked who wanted to take it, and because it was so bad, nobody wanted to take it. I was like, I got it. Because I was looking ahead. I was like, we're about to be on the way. Like
Mhm.
I can make it work. And I remember talking to each one of you, you know, like in the mess, and I was like, this is my plan. I plan to, since we're gonna be on the way, I need your support to send your first classes because we're gonna do every, I think it was like twice a week in the mess day. We had an hour where everybody will come and they will do training. So it will be a table
Mhm.
for engineer, a table for ops, a table for combat system, and then the first classes and chiefs will do training, and people will get their books and get signatures and schedule walkthroughs and things like that. Man, within like the first 3 months after that, we went from probably like a 30% of the whole crew being qual to like 70%.
Yeah. 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 Man, it was everybody wanted to get Ace was qualified. That was all. That was awesome.
Yeah. But
I
it's
used to
all
love
about,
those. Yeah.
yeah, but it's
I used
all
to
up.
have the speed round. I remember that stuff. I used to
but
love that.
yeah, but it's also,
But it
but
was fun.
it was fun, and it was also the all the support that I got from you guys, right? Because as
Mhm.
a cheese mess, I came, like I said, I came with the idea, but if you not supporting me and you're not encouraging me, or even telling me, hey, this is great, but let's do this. Because I remember we didn't have murder boards, so it was one of you guys, I can't remember who was like, yeah, the first guys should be doing murder boards before, you know, they, you know, anybody comes back to us, right? Because
Yeah.
that way they could be prepared. Then I remember Mac being like, hey, when we do our boards here in the cheese mess, like I need an hour to DC. If they cannot pass DC, then there's no point to do anything else. And I was
Right.
like, bet that makes sense. So like I needed all that guidance, right? And then by
Mhm.
you know, because of all that, the program just blossomed. But it was
Yeah. It
because
blossomed.
I had everybody backing and support, and that's just what we do as a mess, right?
Yeah, yeah. You see, yeah, you're getting these steps going, successful tour, just selected for chief, took on the program, took the program from 30% to 70%. That's them stepping stones you got to make, to have a successful tour and a successful career moving forward. But yeah, USS Forrest Sherman. So from you was there from 2010 to 2013. From the Forrest Sherman, you went to CID HQ Corey Station. Where's that at?
So that is in Pensacola, and at
Mhm.
the time it was the percent. It was CID stood for Center of Information Dominance.
Okay.
Headquarters. And what I did was I became the training manager for a bunch of C schools for the ITs. So, what training manager pretty much my responsibility is to ensure that the course is being taught correctly, that it's up to date, that I have the instructors that are doing it, I qualify, and then whenever new curriculum needs to come in, then I make sure that I do the quality control, that things are following the programs they need to be and all that stuff. So my responsibility was as the headquarters is to ensure that pretty much ITs are getting the training that they require, and you know, from A school to C schools and then to the ship.
Did you have to get your MTS, Master Training Specialist, while you
So
were there?
that's the funny thing, right? Because I wasn't the one instructing but I did get 95 back then. It was 9502 en route,
Mhm.
right? So I remember I put on senior like as soon as I got there.
Mhm.
I got there like in, I want to say like April, and then the results came out in June. And it was my first time going up for senior, and I was not expecting
Mhm.
it. But I
No
should have
one
known.
ever does.
Yeah, yeah. I should,
No.
but I should have known because I left. Because this here's another thing. Going a little bit back to the Fort Sherman, because
Mhm.
I stay on board, and because I did all the things that I did, I also like my very first eval as a chief. I was the number 2 EP. Very first eval, and that again, I owe it to you guys, the one, and then also D
That,
for
you
believing in
make
me.
the captain look good. Yeah. Oh yeah,
Yeah,
you gonna be up there.
yeah. So you know what I mean. So like, and then so like when I left, right, and I I had that eval, and then even my transfer eval, because I transferred before the new evals came out.
Mhm.
I got a call out that I would have been number 2 again, because Nick was still there, and Nick was the number 1. Um,
Mhm.
and so like I made it first time up for senior because of my evals on the Fort Sherman.
Yeah. Good.
So like I got there, and then I was doing this, and I went to the school for instructor, and I remember I was already looking. Even I just made senior chief. I talked to the ITCM that it was there, who just sat the board that year, and for Master Chiefs. And the first thing he said, he's like, "I see that you have that NEC. Where's your MTS?" And I was like, "Well, I don't teach. Like, my billet is not to be an instructor." And he's like, "Brother, I need you to understand one thing." He's like, "Whatever a command offers, you better get it,
Mm.
whether it's IW, SW, AW, whatever pen, whatever anything that you could get. In this case, MTS, you better get it." So I
Mhm.
went to the schoolhouse because they work for us, and I was like, "Hey, I know I cannot instruct the curriculum because you have to get a certain qualification, and that takes too much time, and I don't have the time for that, right? Like because of my other job." But can I teach BMR? Because they at the time they were still teaching like uh, basic military requirements to the newest section sailors that were coming in
Mhm.
as they going through the school and getting taught in their sea school. They're also getting taught about basic military requirements. So that gave me podium time. So because you need that as part of your call, you need to like
Right.
have like 80 or 90 hours. I can't remember the amount of hours that you needed.
Mhm.
So yeah, so to answer your question, I got my NTS there. Um, but I wasn't required, but I knew that if I wanted to make Master Chief one day, I needed to have that qual. And I got it.
He's already thinking ahead. Boom. I mean, senior chief. All right, all right, all right. The next step. Next step. Keep getting those qual, keep getting what you need to get to that next level. Because as I said in my introduction, you know, um, it's off that movie. I can't remember what called Bashir, but the captain said, a few men could do a whole career and never make that rank.
And got
And
yep.
I know it, but he's already setting himself up to attain that rank,
And
right?
and I
So,
want to I want to add something too because I don't want people to think that like oh, he just got that qual because he just wanted to get promoted, which was part of it, but also by becoming MTS, Master Training Specialist, then I was able also to understand more what my instructors were doing while they were teaching
exactly,
the class. So not only was I doing something for career purposes, but also to do my job better, because now
exactly.
I could communicate with my other instructors, the ones that I had in Mississippi, because I had instructor in San Diego, Mississippi, Florida, uh,
Oh wow, you
Connecticut.
was all over then.
Yeah. So
Okay, I
I had
thought you just did that one place, so you all over.
No, I was in that place, but I had
Yeah,
instructors in all these
judges,
different schoolhouses.
right?
I had to like I had to talk to them all the time. Like I had to you know, so like for example, you went to a bunch of Navy schools, so like most schools at the end they have like questionnaire, how was the class and all this.
Yeah,
Like I
yeah,
used to get all that stuff, and I had to read it, and I had to ensure like okay, they're complaining that this subject we didn't talk about it enough. So then we have to do let's check the curriculum and see how we can make it better. So like I was always, finding things to try to make the course better for our sailors. And then, there will be times that I remember having to tell a commanding officer in Florida, I was like, hey, that first class that's teaching that class, he's about to get fired because every critique uh, talks about how awful of an instructor he is.
Wow.
So
Okay.
you know what I mean. So
Mhm.
but when then the sailors, when they will talk about certain things in those critique, I was able to understand because I became MTS qualified.
Yeah.
So it's all
Okay.
tied in, right? So like
Hmm.
I want to make sure that I put that out there because I don't want people to think that like too many times people like, oh, when we sit down with a first class or a second class or whatever, and we're like, hey, you need to do X, Y, and Z, and all they hear is, oh, you want me to be selling candy for the NWR. No, everything has a purpose. If I'm
Yeah.
telling you,
Yeah.
if I'm telling you that you should do X, Y, and Z, it's because this is only gonna make yourself, the unit, the mission better.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah. The better yourself, it's great to get a qual, but it helps you. It enhances you. You learn things
yes.
from it that you never learned before. But most definitely that is correct. So from 2013, 2015, you had CRD HQ Corey Station. From there, you go to Desron 22, Destroyer Squadron 22. How was that? And what'd you do there?
So there, I now I'm looking. I'm paying more attention to what we call the enlisted career path, or ECP, or some people old school used to be the ladder. Um,
Hmm.
what is this next step that is that you're looking at for senior chiefs to take if you want to make master chief? What's the career path?
Right.
Um, and at the time I was married, so I should have gone to a big deck. That should have been like the next step. But
Hmm.
unfortunately, there was no opening. And because she was an officer and in the Air Force, she had like first pick. So she got orders to Hampton, Langley Air Force Base. So I had to get orders to Norfolk, so we could be close.
Right.
And the only openings were the Deserons. And I remember that I picked 22 because the USS Cole was under 22. Um, so I picked that. I also got an NEC en route. I always try to do that, by the way. Like I wanted to continue to learn about my rate. So anytime I
Hmm.
got orders, I always try to get an NEC en route, which is why I have like 9 NECs right now. Uh,
10.
yeah. Um,
You're like five sailors all in one.
so I got there, and my responsibilities was I was the communication officer for the Deseron. So remember earlier when we were talking about like when you're in the strike group on the staff, you become in the strike group. Well, and I said that usually the strike group has a cruiser and it has 3 or 4 destroyers under the. Well, the Deseron is the next level down from the strike group. So the strike group, we take care of the whole strike group, and
Right.
and then the Deseron is responsible for all the destroyers. Then they, you know, um, respond to the Deseron, and then the Deseron, who usually is an O6, then talks to the admiral.
Right.
So
Mhm.
so I was what we call the ISIC, in intermediate. Uh,
Oh yeah, so you were the SC. Yeah,
yes.
I always thought it was an officer.
Well, it is an officer, but I was part, like the entire Deseron is considered the ISIC as a whole.
Okay, that's right.
So
You're right.
yeah,
Hmm.
so like for example, for you guys, we had an O4 that he was the engineer guy, and we
Hmm.
also had a GM, GS, CM that was like the master chief. We only had one master chief.
So basically, you're set up like with all departments on a ship, but
There
you're
you go.
there's one in charge of the
Yes.
destroyer group.
So
Okay.
so so not only is weird because you wear like 3 different hats. So like for me, I was the communication officer not only for the Deseron itself because we had our own responsibility. We had I had to worry about the network. I had to worry about qualifications that we needed to have as a Deseron, and then I worry about all the 7 other destroyers that was under me.
Hmm.
So I was the communication officer for them as well. Although they do have a communication officer on board the ship, if that makes sense.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah. Hmm.
then because of the GS, Master Chief, he was amazing. Like he knew his stuff engineer wise.
You remember
Like
his name?
what was Dewey Graham?
Dewey. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So he knew his stuff, but I'm gonna tell you, and I told him this, so I'm not afraid to say it here. I told him that as well in person. He was not into like he was so into just doing the job that when it came to taking care of sailors, he was slacking, right? So, and because he was underway so much, because any issue that any ship had, he always was the one that wanted to go underway. Like when it came to engineer, like
Mhm.
he barely stayed in our building. He was always one of the that we had the conversation, and the Commodore was like, "Well, I need a SCL. Like I need because he was the SCL. And like I
Mhm.
need SCL to be with me. Like you always gone. So they made me the SCL.
Oh man,
So now it was
that's
now it was
he
like
mind. He just wanted to be underway, I guess.
yeah. So not only was I the Commo, was also the SCL, which in a way kind of helped me because then I was able to get into the CMC school. I went to SCA school. I went to CMC
Mhm.
when I was in the Desert. Um, and that helped me because I was when I would go on board the destroyers, they had to treat me as the equivalent of the CMC because
Yeah.
I
Mhm.
was the SCL to the '06
Yeah.
that '05 is working for, right? And sometimes that caused some issues because some of those CMZs will look at me and I was still an E8, I was still a senior chief.
Yeah.
Um, but I will be like position of authority, brother. Like, hey,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
you know what I mean? Like,
So see what you could come tell me. I'm
ex- ex-
asking you what to do.
yeah,
On my
exactly. Yeah,
ship.
exactly. They will come at me that way, and I'll be like, "Look, man, I'm just telling you what my Commodore wants.
Yeah, yeah. It's
I'm just
all
trying to
good.
help you out. Like, hey, if you don't want to listen and then get your CO get their ass chewed by my
Yeah,
Commodore, that's on
yeah.
you. I'll leave that
Mhm.
up to you. But yeah,
Yeah, I seen that before. I seen that before. Yeah, yeah. I was like, man, my man is here to help. Oh, chill out.
yeah, I'm trying to help you out, man. I understand that you're a CMC and you have earned that, and no disrespect or whatever. But because of my position of authority, I'm the senior listed advisor to the Commodore. So, and structure wise, I'm above you, right? And that's just the
Yeah,
bottom line, right?
yeah.
Like
That's
that's
it.
because it happens in every job. How many times have you had, you have a chief that's in charge of department, and then in another department is a senior chief. Well, that's still
Yeah,
a department LCPO, even though he's a chief,
yeah.
right? Because
Mm-hmm.
of the
Most
position of
definitely.
authority, right? So it was interesting, and I learned a lot, and that's when I started going to school even more. So while I was there, I got my bachelor's degree, and then I did
Where'd you get your bachelor's in?
so I got my bachelor in computer networks and security.
Ooh,
Yeah.
ooh. That's big
And
money.
the funny thing is, man, like I was like, I'm done. I'm not gonna do anything more. And as you saw in my bio, like I kept going after that. Uh,
Yeah, yeah,
high school.
yeah. Well, so from Desron 22, 2015 to 2018, you went back overseas to Sicily.
So
Now, go ahead,
no,
go
no, I
ahead.
was just gonna say that one. It was one that I didn't choose. Like that's one of the few that I did not want to go. So now at this time I'm already I'm divorced, right? So
Okay, I was getting to ask you. I was like, your wife get stationed over there? Okay, you
yeah,
divorced
yeah,
now.
so I'm
Okay.
divorced, so I want to stay in Virginia, like because
Hmm.
my son is there, because now I have a son as well, my daughter is there, I want to be able to see them, right? And I told my detailer I was even willing to go back to back sea so I could stay in Norfolk. And
Hmm.
um and us ITs, we're really big on our seashore rotation. Like they want us to do our 3 years of sea, do 3 years of shore. Because what happens is a lot of times you get people like me, they're like, oh, keep sending me to sea. And then I go back to sea and then I'm complaining and or now I'm acting like I'm broken and then now I can go, all this other stuff, right?
Yeah.
And then the billet in Sicily has been open for 18 months.
Wow.
So I pretty much said, once, because I was going back and forth, and then he kind of got upset with me, my detailer, and he was like, look, either Hawaii or Sicily, you got 6 hours. If you don't call me, I'm making it big for you.
That is just like my detail always
Yeah,
say. You going pushing boots or you going recruiting? I was like, well, I guess I'm going recruiting. Quick, he held the phone on me.
Yeah, so I called him about like 3 hours later. I was like, all right, man, I'm not going to Hawaii because I just gonna be even farther away from my kids. So
Yeah.
Europe, I could make a quick like one flight straight to the east.
Hmm.
I could see them. Plus, I was like, all right, I like overseas. I liked it when I was stationed in England, to be in Europe. So I was like, I'll go to Sicily. So I
Hmm.
went, so when I went to Bahrain, I was in NCTS Bahrain. Now when I went to Sicily, I was in NCTS Sicily. Um,
Okay.
so when I got there, I was the department LCPO for the biggest department in the command, which is the operations department. Um, so you know, I had uh, I had two watch floors, um, sometimes even three because we had to like man another place at times. And I had anywhere from 80 to 90. Sometimes when we were really man, we had over 100 ITs. We had more ITs in the command, but under the
Dang.
N3 department, I had about 100 folks working.
Damn, that's
With,
like 100 over 100 ITs at one place. Wow.
yeah, yeah, brother.
That's insane right there. So how'd you like Sicily? I've always heard some good things about Sicily.
Oh, Sicily. So at first, like because I didn't want to go there. At first, I was
Of
very
course.
like, like, oh, man, this place, man. But then, like, I found a really nice apartment. Um, like the landlord, the guy who built it, got really smart. He used to be one of those in the base that will show you houses, when you come in, so you could, get something in the economy. So
Hmm.
he took a lot of notes, I guess, and found out like, what Americans look for. So he built these apartments. They were as Americanized as you will ever get them. Like they were
Wow.
very spacious. They had all these different things. So I got that place. It had a pool. It had a gym. It had a tennis court. It had a barbecue
Dang.
area. It was lovely. And then the what I really enjoy was because we were in a base that, although it's considered our base, the facilities are run by the Italian. Um,
Hmm.
we had their holidays too. So what happened is that we will almost get a 4-day weekend almost every month, at least one. So then what I would do is I will travel all over Europe, whenever
Hmm.
we had those 4 days. And I love soccer. So what I would do is I will find a match that I wanted to watch, let's say in Amsterdam. I will
Hmm.
buy the tickets and then I will just spend the weekend there. I will fly out either Thursday night or early Friday morning, stay there Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then fly back Monday. And I
Let me
did
tell you
that.
something. Yeah.
Yeah, bro.
Yeah, let me tell you something for those of you listening out here. You do your Navy career right, man. You can live a life like a millionaire, a jet set a millionaire, on a regular paycheck.
Yes,
On a
because I
military.
mean, and then one thing I will say, like, it's more expensive to buy plane tickets here that in the U.S. So let's say, like last year, I wanted to go for the Memorial Day weekend. I went to Boston because I'm a Boston Red Sox fan.
Hmm.
Um, just the plane ticket cost me almost $600 from
Yeah,
Baltimore to Boston.
yeah.
I used to spend hotel, airfare, and the tickets to go watch the soccer game. Depending on what city, the least I spent was when I went to Romania, and I only spent $250, and I got all three things. And the most I spent
That's
was when I
ridiculous.
went to London, and I spent 700, but I still had all three things: a
All three
hotel
things.
with breakfast included, airfare, and the tickets to a match. You can't
Uh,
beat that, man.
And that's why uh, those people in Europe, they're more traveled than people here in the United States because when they take vacation, I mean, they go all over the place and they're able to see more things. The cost here is so ridiculous. Okay, when we go on our yearly vacation, when these people they traveling all over the place, all over the year.
Yes,
They take life way more than we do over here because it's a
and
constant grind over here.
and it's crazy because it was so much that like it got to a point where like I was traveling that first year because I got there late 18 in October 2018. Um, that first year, 2019, I traveled to a different city. Sometimes I travel to the same city. For example, I love Barcelona, so I went to Barcelona like twice in 19. And my best friend was stationed in Oslo, Norway, so I went there twice as well. But I visit 19 cities in Europe in that one year.
You can't get that on a cruise
Brother,
anymore.
brother, I was gone. Like if there was a 4-day weekend or a 3-day weekend,
Oh,
and
gosh,
I
that's
used to go to my
insane.
CEO and my ops, who was my um uh department head. I used to be like, look, I will tell them ahead of time, like, hey, this next 2 weekends from now is a 4-day weekend. You got me from 06 to 2000, 2100, Monday to Thursday. But when I bounce on Friday, I'm going until I come back. Like my phone is on and you could talk to me and tell me whatever, but like use me because I didn't have family again. Like my
Mhm,
two kids were in the US. I wasn't seeing anybody. I wasn't in any relationship. So like I was submerged in my job from Monday
mhm.
to Friday. But on the weekends, on the 4-day weekends, I was living it up, bro. Like
That's
I
my
don't
time.
that exactly. I needed to decompress. Like
Yeah.
it got to a point that like they were like my sailors would come to my office and be like, "Where are you going this weekend, Senior Chief?" You know. Um yeah, and I used to tell them though, like, because I understand, they didn't make as much money as me, but I used to be like, okay, you don't have to travel every month like I do. But what you could do is you could start setting money aside and say, okay,
Yeah.
in 3 months, I'm gonna go to this place. And you start doing your research. Okay, it's gonna cost me this much, this much, this much, and then you
Mhm,
save up. And so yeah, it was a great command. And to be honest, because by that point now, is was taking me a minute to make Master Chief. Like, because like I said,
mhm.
I made it at 13 and a half. I'm a senior, and now we're talking in 18. I made it back in 13, so like I already been off for senior twice by the time I got to Sicily, and I was there and I wasn't making it either. And
Mhm.
and I was getting really good evals, but one of the problems was because I didn't chose that order, is that I wasn't being competitive. And what I mean by that is my group, it was only either 101 because I was the only senior chief, or 102
Yeah.
because there was
Yeah.
only two of us. So I wasn't breaking out with a large group, like let's say a senior chief that was in a carrier, or a
Yeah.
senior chief that it
Yeah.
was in a Nick Tam's land where there's
Yeah.
more senior chiefs. So that was hurting me. So I started looking into, and that's why I also continue, going to school, because I was like, okay, then I need this now. I got to a point that I was like, I need to start focusing on what I'm gonna do when I get out, because I'm not gonna
Yeah.
make Master Chief. So,
Mhm.
so I was working on this masters, and then we had a lieutenant that came TAD, and he was like, "Hey, have you ever heard of this program?" And I was like, "What program is that?" It's called Mako, and I was like, "What does that mean?" And it's a stand for Masters of Applications for Cybersecurity and Operations, and pretty much what it is it's a program that is only for the ITs and CTNs, who are now are called CWTs.
Mhm.
You have to have a bachelor's degree, but you apply, and if you get accepted, you get sent to the Naval Postgraduate School in Monterey, California, and you go there for a year and a half. Well, when I went, it was only for a year, but now they made it a year and a half. And the Navy literally is paying you to go to school every day to get a master's degree.
I remember you posted that on Instagram, and I
Yeah.
was like, how does that work? Now I understand.
Yeah.
Man, gosh.
So I just roll the dice because one, I'm a senior chief already. Two, at the time I already had 18 and a half years. So I was like, the Navy's is gonna be like, you too old. We because the Navy always wants something back, right? Like if we're gonna
Yeah.
give you something, we want something back.
Mhm.
And I already was working on another master's degree anyway. But I put it in and I got accepted, man. And then after from Sicily, I while I was there, I got a great recommendation from the CEO, and I got accepted, and I was just finishing my first master's, and
Mhm.
here I get accepted to go to school for another master's degree.
Yeah. And you got another master's degree. That's, man, let me tell you something. The Navy, is awesome. Yeah, all military branches are awesome, but
It,
if you got to squeeze every drop of benefits and
yes,
education you can get out of it before
yes.
you get out. Let me
I,
tell you that.
I was
He's telling you that right now.
I was the other day. I went to talk to JROTC class in Virginia, and I was telling them that I was giving them perspective, right? I was telling them the good, the bad, and the ugly because I like to be very frank
Mhm.
about things. And one of the things I said like I have two master's degree, and I think I have spent out of my pockets between a book here, or having to print something out, or buy notebooks, or there was one time I was taking a biology class, so I had to buy the the things to do like experiments at my house.
Yeah. Hmm.
Um, I think I spent a grand total about $2,000, and I got two masters,
Can't
and
beat
that's
more
all.
soul than that.
And that's all because of the Navy. Like,
Yeah.
all TA, all, and then I threw in there, I told him and I said, and I still have the Montgomery GI Bill that I'm just gonna give it to my kids
Give it
because
to
I
my
don't need it.
kids. Exactly. Exactly. That's what I did. Split up between two of
Yeah.
my kids. Yeah.
I give my daughter has 18 months, my son has 18 months on my Montgomery
Yeah.
GI Bill.
Yeah. That's the same thing I did. So this people. Yeah. I mean, squeeze all of, and he's showing you, man, that the process. And I mean, he's making himself better, not only for the future when he's out of the Navy, but also while he's still in as well. All right, but from NCT essentially, you spent 2008 to 2021. You go to NPS. Where's that?
So that's in Monterey, California, and
Okay,
that's the Naval Postgraduate School. And I was it's crazy
okay, okay.
it's crazy because like you are truly a student. Like I was wearing civilian clothes 4 out of the 5 days.
Really?
Yes,
Oh,
brother.
it's insane. That's
I was
crazy.
it, it's
You
truly
get Navy pay to go to school. That
yeah,
is awesome.
like I was truly like a student. Like I was still getting paid as a senior chief. I was still getting my pay. I was still getting my BH for California, right?
Which is it's
Which is
astronomical. That
yeah,
BH,
which is expensive. And then in Monterey though, like I had a little one bedroom apartment and I was paying like $2,200. Like
I believe you.
expensive over there. Um, but I was in lovely California. I was beautiful weather all the time. I was going to school. I only had to wear a uniform on Tuesdays, and it was just our Type 3, so it wasn't nothing crazy. Um,
Mhm,
only things I had to do was I had to do only two out of all the GMTs that we had to do in the Navy. Like we had to do the cyber awareness because we're using a computer, and then like
right,
two more. We had to do like the 4 or 5 that are really mandatory no matter what. I had to do my PRT, of course, because you have to stay within shape. And then once
right.
in a while, I have urinalysis. But besides that, it was like I was in a college campus. I will go to school, in civilian clothes. I had one or two classes. Some days one semester I remember I only had one class on Tuesday, and then I had one on Friday, but it was in the morning. But like like a lot of times it was recorded. So like if I wanted
Mhm,
to travel, I would leave on Thursday because I didn't have school on Friday, and I would just
mhm,
travel for the weekend. Man, it was. I mean, it was a lot of work. Don't get me wrong, because because it's a master's degree, I had to do a
right.
thesis at the end.
Mhm,
So that took a lot. Like my thesis is 79 pages. Um, so like that took a lot. So it wasn't just like a good time. I still had to put a lot of work. But
mhm.
but when you think about it, like the Navy, as you say, was paying me to go to school
That's crazy.
to get
That
a
that
master's
that
degree and become better as a sailor and as a person.
that's awesome right there.
Yeah.
So from there, from that graduate school, then you go to U.S. Fleet Cyber Command, U.S. 10th Fleet,
That's correct. That's where I'm at now.
which you're
Um,
currently at now.
yeah.
And then when did you hear that, hey, you was selected for Massachusetts? When did you hear?
So I graduated in March of
Hmm.
22 from the school, and then I had orders. I show up May, um, and I get there. Like I said, I'm still a senior chief. I get there. I'm doing turnover with the other senior chief, because again, that's another command where the master chief billet was gapped for like 12 months.
Hmm.
And I get there, and I remember the results came out, and the chief of staff, who's the '06, I haven't even done my check in with him yet, and
Hmm.
he comes into the office where I sit, and he's like, "Where's a senior chief Ponciano sits?" And I stood up, and I was just like, "Yeah, I just wanted to say hi. We haven't met yet or whatever." And I was like, "Oh, okay, sir, how you doing or whatever?" And then he's like, "But you're in wrong uniform right now." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And he's like, "Congratulations." And I just couldn't believe it, honestly, brother. Like this was my fifth time going up, fifth or sixth, I can't remember.
Hmm.
I already have given up, to be honest with you. Like I was already
Yeah, yeah,
focusing on, the next. I was gonna do my 3 years because like that was part of the program. If you get accepted to go to the school to get a master's degree, then you have to give the Navy 36 months in a short command working on cyber. So
right.
I was like, okay, I'll do my last 3 years cyber, then I'll retire. And he told me that, man, and I was like, I was shocked, like I was just like, I firm believe that I deserved it. I put the work, I
Yeah.
had qualifications, I done it all right. But I was already like, okay, if it's not in the cards, then it's not in the cards, right? Um,
Hmm.
and then, man, like he told me that, and I remember I went outside because it's a secure space, so I got on my phone, I talked to my mother, I talked to my daughter. Um, and it's funny because when the list comes out, you always get a number, and it's usually that number that you get in the list is not because they picked you, number one or number two or number three. It's by seniority, right?
Yeah, seniority.
So I was the number one because I've been a senior chief for so freaking long,
Yeah,
which is funny because then I got paid right away. So
yeah,
like,
yeah. Just
yeah.
like me, when I've been in first class so freaking long. It's like, man, you're number one.
So yeah. So yeah, and put on, and thankfully because the billet was gap, I didn't get moved. They just moved me up, like they
Hmm.
in the master chief spot, instead of like, because sometimes you make master chief or you make chief whatever, and then they send you to another command. But I stayed
Yeah,
because they just moved me up to the master chief spot. And while I've been here, man, I remember I went and checked in with the CMC, and he was like, you know tell me about yourself. And I tell him about how being in the cold, and he's like, "Oh my God, what was your pay grade at the time?" I was like, "I was an E1 when it happened." And
hmm,
he's like, "So you just went from E1 all the way to E9. You were part of the USS Cole early on in your career." He's like, "No, you got to tell the world about this." And I'm like, "Well, I'm not into um like like talking about myself like that." But they did a article, and it was for just the command and the domain, the IW domain. But then
yeah,
they send it to the all hands, and so it came out in the all hands for the Navy, and the Navy
hmm,
picked it up, and then from there I started getting requests to go speak at different commands, and then I became part of the Warrior Toughness team. So I teach Warrior Toughness. I go through different commands around the globe, and I go. It's me, a chaplain, and a resiliency officer, and then I talk from the sense of the warrior. The chaplain talks about in the sense of the soul, and then the resiliency officer, she talks about mind and the tools that you could do to try to be as resilient as you can. So I've been a big advocate on regards to trying to make us better by being more resilient.
yeah. Because most of us go through, you know, when we join, we come in and okay, I'm coming in for the college, or when we get in, whew, has his duty paid, the pay is good, what ports we going to hit, and nobody, because it's like a regular job to us, and nobody really thinks that the unthinkable could happen one day, the
Yes.
unthinkable. And, that is such a great to go out there and let them know that, hey, I know we're out there doing our job, but the unthinkable can happen, and that's why we're here. You
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. And I think, and one of the things that our chaplain is the one that started saying it, but now I use it as well.
Mhm.
A lot of us, we enlist and raise our right hand, and then we think about all these different things while we do it. But the reality is, we're here for war. Like
Yeah,
the services are here in case of war, right? So
Mhm.
we are a weapon that the powers that be, the Senate, the president use us and our skills and the equipment for war. So when you're thinking about you as a sailor right now, why did you join war? That's the last thing they say, but
Mhm.
that's what we're here for,
Yeah.
right? And and nothing can prepare you for that thing. And I don't care how much training you have. Like, yeah, I was able to do what I was trained to do as far as when the Cole happened, but nobody can train you to see in death and see the things that I saw. So my only thing when I go talk about resilient is the sense of understanding and having a purpose. Because if you have a purpose, if you have something that I like to call it your why, why you doing
Mhm.
this, you are able to do things that you didn't even think is possible. Because even back then on the Cole, I didn't know what having a why meant. But my why, without even knowing it, was my mother. I wanted to come back home to my mother. So whatever they told me to do, I was doing it because I wanted to come back home to my mother. And
Yeah.
and when you have something that powerful, something that draws you to be the best person that you could be, to do the things that you're supposed to do, then you could be very successful. You could, and not just only successful, you could go through anything in life. Yes, you're gonna have your down moments. You're gonna, depression might come. You can even feel really down. But if you have that why, that sense of purpose, then you can look at it as this is not the end. This is just a bump in the road. I'm gonna keep moving, and little by little, I'll get better.
Oh, most definitely, most definitely. And like I said, we're gonna go through his time on the code on the second time that we do get together. But that was well said because a lot of us go through the Navy. I mean, like I said, we don't even think about what could happen, and then when it does happen, you like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
But yeah, most definitely. Um, so like I said at the beginning, you have probably one of the most diverse command tours I've ever chronicled. You've been all over the place. Like, because I'm used to seeing an engineers, which is usually okay. I'm gonna go to a ship and I'll go to shore duty, and then I'll come back to the ship, and then, it's just that same thing.
It's a cycle. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's like, but your command, your tours of duty is just outstanding, and it sounds like you enjoyed, transferring each time. Of course, you had your challenges on each one, but which one you would say was the most instrumental and your favorite? Can you think of one?
So I can't think. I have to use two, and they
Yeah.
and funny enough, they're back to back. So the first one was Jack Mosworth, right? Like,
Hmm.
I was a very driven, very uh, down to like be the best professional I wanted to be. Second class when I got there, but I was stuck, right? Like I said, I was been taking the first class exam forever. Um, and I got there and I May 1st, and between some of the first classes, because we had some really good first classes in there as well, and then the cheese mans that we had there, I grew exponentially. Like I didn't you don't realize it while it's happening, right? But like when you look back, you look and how much I grew there, right? Because
Hmm.
I started looking at the Navy outside of just being an IT. It was I started looking at, like I said, I was more involved with programs now. I was more involved with like doing things of the first class petty officer association. We would do comrails, we would do teach the BMRs, we will do things for the command and things for the sailors to help with the mission. Because if you have better morale, then the mission is gonna follow. Like that is, you have a more connected command. And then like I said, the chief mess was very like in tune with us. Like they were very involved. So I always had the extra guidance, even if I didn't want it. Like I was constantly getting, and I was being challenged, but again, in the proper way. It was always, what else can I do without trying to not trying to work me to death, because it was not about like staying at work later, but it was more like, okay, so you guys did this rail, awesome. When is the next one? And you didn't invite it, and the Chiefs this time. Why didn't you? You know what I mean? And like little things that I kept learning them, because
Yeah.
you make mistakes as you go, but it was never done in a bad way. It was never like trying to. They were not chewing my ass. They were just simply be like, hey, next time send the invite to the khakis as well, the chiefs, the officers. Like let's do it as a command thing.
Right.
You
Right.
guys could take the credit as the first class who set it up, but we could do it as a command. So that way we could show more support and we could show the community, right, that Americans are here and we're taking care of people. So that
Yeah.
there I went to the Forest Sherman, and without a doubt, the Forest Sherman is the best command that I've been to. And this is why. Although it was the most challenging, by the way, it was because I had to grow then an extra step. Like being the acting chief, I was literally the one that like, you know, I had to like do evals, and I didn't have a chief to like look at it before it went to the departmental CPO. It went, like it went to Master Chief or Corey, like from me to them, like that. There was no chief in between.
Hmm.
I was the one that had to like complain to Corey, to Senior Chief Jones, like, hey, how come every of my guys, even my second class line handlers, when there's another division that have Seaman, that they're not being part of line handler? Like I had to like do things as a first class that were expected of a chief. So I had to
Yeah.
grow quickly. And then the mess that I had on the Fort Sherman was just amazing. I'm not gonna try to make it sound, because this, and I'll be a hypocrite if I don't say this. Like we did have some brothers and sisters that were not pulling their weight, right? Because we're human. So like
Yeah. Yeah.
not everybody is in tune, but for the most part, we had a very tight mess, and we took care of the ship as a whole. Like
Mhm.
that was one of the few commands where I felt like, we say this a lot, that like the mess is the what runs a command. That's one of the few commands, even to this day, that I felt like we truly ran that command, and in the best way possible. Like anything that happened went through us. Hey, we're gonna change from 3 sections to six, from six to three, or this is gonna happen, or that is gonna happen. It was always discussed in the mess, and I'll go as far as saying 98% of what went out of that, the CMC went to the triad, was executed. Like,
Mhm.
because that was that level of trust, because we earned it. We didn't earn it
Yeah.
just we
Yeah.
we didn't earn it just because we had the uniform. We earned it because we performed while on the ship. So like, like we talked earlier, when that commanding officer was like, "Hey, I'm sending the other chief out because I trust you," it's because I performed. Like because
Yeah.
he saw me performing, and so I got that. I got that. I got from you. You were. I used to call you the. My joke about you was you were the quiet assassin, because you were just quiet. So when you did speak, or when you did say something, people listen, because you were very laid back. But the times that you spoke, everybody was quiet and understood, because Daryl just don't talk to just talk, right? So I learned that from you. Nick and Corey were the smooth operators, right? They were just always super smooth, but they will get shit done. D and Sip, what's her first name? Last name Harrison. LS female. There
I know
were
you're talking about. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
there were the calm, right? Like
Mhm.
there were just like the sister, the auntie,
Mhm.
the
Yeah.
it kept
Yeah.
us whole, right? That you know, and so we had like all these different things, and we were able to not only use it amongst each other, but most importantly, to use it outside to our sailors, right? Like,
Mhm.
because the same way you were in the mess, very quiet and whatever, and you just joke in certain spot, then that's how you were in CCS. Your sailors could always count on you, but when you spoke, they listened, because you
Yeah.
just simply
Yeah.
you simply didn't talk just to talk, right? So like all those things you will see it outside. So the Forest Sherman, although there was a lot of hard work, there was a lot of long hours when you count in serve and deployments and all that stuff. Yeah, those are the two of my favorite commands, because I learned so much on how to be a chief, how to be a sailor, how to like take care of people. Because like like I said, when I got to England, I was a hot second class that only worried about me. So like
Yeah.
I got to Molesworth and I became a first class, and then I got to the Fort Sherman, became a chief. I had to worry about other people. Like my success was measured by their success.
Exactly.
So
Exactly. Just because you move up that level into a leadership position, you always, don't look at yourself, look at your people, because your people is what makes you successful. And that's what I always say. I was like, I could be the dumbest senior chief in the world. As long as I got a team around me that can perform and I can lead them and they can accept, what I'm, vision I'm trying to go to. Shoot, I look like I'm the best leader in the world.
yeah,
Yeah. And you use all your people, they got a different skill or whatnot, to make that team great. But yeah, you're exactly right, man. That achievements on Forrest Sherman is like second to none. I was like, oh my gosh, But I got a question on here that, well, I got a question on, well, are you a 30-year man? You 30 years?
no, I have missed so much. Like I miss a lot with my daughter, right? Like um, I was
Same with me.
yeah, I
Same
was
with me.
chasing the next pay grade and the next this and the next that, and I don't regret it, right? Life it is what it is, right?
Yeah.
But my son now, he's 9. He's right now is in England because his mother is stationed there,
Mhm.
and they're coming back this year to Vegas. And once I'm done in 10th Fleet, I have to go back to a ship.
Right.
You know, there's no USS anything in Vegas, so yeah, so it's time to go, brother. Like I don't want to miss any more things for my children. That will put me at 26, and
Mhm.
I think that's more than enough. And then and if I'm being completely honest with you, even let's say if they were here in Norfolk, right, where I could get a ship, um, I'm not into being out to sea anymore. Like I just and I'm a seagoing rate, so I know this gonna happen, but I don't wanna hold on just to hold on, right? Like I
Yeah.
I don't feel the love that I used to feel for being out to sea like I used to. So I don't want to be that person that's miserable for 3 years out to sea and then put that misery to my sailors. So it's time to go.
And you know what? That's the same thing I said. I told Coleman that when I was on the ship, I told Coleman, shout out to Amber Coleman out there, Amber Coleman Rodriguez, because I know you're married, okay? And I told her, that's like, when I start complaining about the Navy, because I never complain, it's time for me to go.
Yep.
And then, when, I always put the Navy up here so high, and then, the kids started growing up and, I'm always out to sea. And then it's like, the Navy started to go down here and my kids started going up here. And then I was like, it's that time. So I know what you mean. Man. I know what you mean. You miss so much time, and then they grown. And so I'm like, dang, man, I miss so much time. And
Yeah.
then, some of my kids, I was actually doing Merchant Mariner. And I was like, you going back out to sea? And I canceled that. I canceled that. But so what are your plans for for right now for the short term future?
As of right now, I'm studying right now because I'm about to take a certification for to be a certified information security manager or CISSM, which is like one of the highest certifications for ITs. Because I start giving my resume to people just to look at it because I still got time in the Navy, and this is something here for anybody that's trying to do anything in the computer field. Um, Degrees are nice, but all these companies they want certifications.
Yeah,
Um, I mean,
yeah,
it's even so much that like they're willing to take someone with a security plus, which is one of our lower certificate, before they take someone like me with a master. Like
mhm,
that's how much it is. So I'm doing that. I'm continuing to, speak whenever I can. Whenever opportunity I'm given to go speak to whether it's sailors in different places or like I did the other day at JRTC. I have a book that should be coming out towards the end of March, early April. That I'm working and we're in this third stage of editing right now.
what is
Uh,
it called? You
it's
got a
gonna
name
be
for it?
yeah, it's anchor and resiliency.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so I have it, and the Cole. So it's anchoring resiliency, overcoming
Hmm.
adversity through mental health awareness.
Yeah.
Um, and it's a book pretty much about my life, but it talks about the Cole. It talks about the many, the trauma that I gone through, not only before even before the Cole, my childhood, who was not the best. The different things that I've been through in the military, the different things I've seen. Uh, talks about also my failures as a husband, my failure as a man, right, and what I have learned
Hmm.
from it. Because I'm not here to the point that I am today if it wasn't because of the fact that I have admitted to my flaws. Because we all have flaws. It just
Right.
it just what you are willing to admit and willing to work on, right? So yeah, so that's pretty much what I have. I'm looking for different things that I want to do. What I like to call it when I grow up. Um, I I definitely have to. My plan is to move to Vegas so I could be around my son. I'm hoping to get a remote job so that way I have more flexibility to be around and do things that I want to do with him. Um, and yeah, man, just enjoy life a lot more. And I love traveling, so I'm always looking for ways to planning trips with my fiance and or planning trips to with my kids and things like that
Mhm.
because I want to build memories, man. Like I'm all about you know
Yeah.
having
Yeah.
things that we could look back and I want that when that time comes that I'm not in this earth anymore and my children hopefully still are, and they have their own children. They
Hmm.
be telling stories, and I went with granddad to do this and that, and we did this, and we saw this, and we ate this food. That's what fills my heart, man. And while I'm in the Navy, man, my only responsibility now, I tell this to my sailors, is I'm not making E10, so my only job is to take care of them.
Take
Uh,
care of them.
because if I take care of them, then they'll take care of the mission. It's
That's
just that
right.
simple. It's just that simple, brother.
That's a full life right there. Now, Bob, this part of the show is a shipmate shout out, which you can shout out any shipmates you want during this time. Thank you.
Uh,
And past, present, doesn't matter.
I have mentioned a few of them already, right?
Mhm.
Like I can come to the point that I'm in today if it wasn't for I'll start from the beginning with CMC Gomez because she retired as a command master chief. Um, Lieutenant Commander Blosso, who like I said, was my LPO, was IT1 when I met him. Um, my LPO when I was in Strike Group, who retired as an ITCM, David Berrien. I got you from Nick, Mason, Corey Jones, uh, Mark, Mac, from the Forest Sherman. Um, and, I all these individuals that I'm talking about have had an impact in who the person that I have become, right? And as you said, they're all shipmates. They all been in our trade. They all had their own career and been very successful. But what I've taken out of them is what I like to call what's your legacy, right? And what I mean by that is I don't remember, and I'll use you for example. I don't remember what pins you have. I know you have Surface, but I don't know what else you have, right?
Mhm.
I don't remember what ribbons you wore, like what you earned or not. But you know what I do remember? I remember our conversations. I remember how you made me feel. I remember how you hold me accountable. I remember how you hold the mess accountable. That's what I believe is our legacy. It's not what's on our chests. It's not what's not on our collar. It's how you make people feel. It's how you make
Yeah.
people become the best that they could be. And that's all I try for, man. It's living a legacy that you guys have left on me. So now it's my turn to do that. That my ultimate goal and as a sailor is that if my mother is sitting in a restaurant tomorrow and there's these two sailors across from her that don't know that that's my mother and they start speaking about me, she could be proud of what they're saying.
Exactly. Exactly. Shipmate shout out. That's from Master Chief Amari Ponciano. All right. All right, give it up. Give it up. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. And what we just went over, he just showed you, his journey from Seaman all the way to Master Chief. He lists you his ups, his downs, but he kept persevering and is only going to get better from right here when he decides to hang it up and go home and be a dad, which is sometimes even a harder job than being a Master Chief. But brother, let me thank you. Let me apologize for the technical difficulties with my camera, but thank you for hanging on for this talk, because this has been real inspirational, educational for all of us here at Snipes Castle. All right. But I want to wish you the very best. Of course, what I always tell my guests, all right, I got this stock and it's going to bounce. It's going to bounce. It's going to put a little bit of money in my pocket. And when I do, I'm going to come visit every single one of you on my list now, So whenever you get, when you retire and you get settled, you get an email from me, I'll be like, yo, man, I'll be there for the weekend. Just choose the restaurant. It's on me. And we go out, me and my wife, me and you, we go have a good time, talk about some old times, a few laughs, But that's my thing, man. I'm going to visit every single person, try to visit every single person I ever served with. And, it's going to be great. It's going to be great. All right.
Well,
Again,
I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity. It's always good to catch up with a shipmate, right? And I hope that anybody that's listening can take something out of it, right? Just simply because it we are full of opportunities, and we said that earlier, right? And the Navy, the military as a whole, and just life is full of opportunities. And we're gonna fall, right? We're gonna fall, and we're gonna stumble, and we're gonna fail at things. What defines us is what we do after that, right? So continue to push to be the best that you could be. Find inspiration in something or someone. Have those mentors, and live life to the fullest, man. Enjoy life. Find a reason to smile. Find a reason to make others smile, and tell those people that you love, "I love you." I don't care if it's the third time today. Let them know, because life is too short.
and Snipes Castle, we'll end there with that last word, because ain't nothing I could say can be any better than that right there. All right. Again, thank you to Master Chief Ponciano for taking the time out of the day to share his career. Again, we're going to have a part 2 to this, and he's going to walk us through that day on the Cole. All right. So again, enjoy the rest of your weekend. Thanks for visiting Snipes Castle. Again, follow us on X, Instagram, follow us on YouTube for videos of shipmates, and we talk about different things because everybody got a different story. Again, Master Chief, thank you for sharing with us. All right. Enjoy the weekend, and I'm out. All right.
Hard work, work.
Hard work, hard work, hard work,
Hard work, that's what they say.
hard work.